Hello and welcome to Storytime with Chris. Today, a story about brotherly love and heartbreak. A story about a young boy and his unfortunate encounter with a burnt pastry. Oh yes, today I'm going to be telling you the story of how I gave my little brother second-degree burns with a Poptart. I got my story right here, and my trusty cup of hot chocolate to keep me nice and warm and cozy as I recount the events from today's story. And with that, it's time to grab a snack, kick back, and relax as we get into today's episode of Storytime with Chris. It all began on a day just like any other. A warm, midsummer day, not a cloud in sight. Children were splashing in the neighborhood pool. The distant sound of a lawnmower and the smell of freshly cut grass filled the air as the people went about their daily lives, oblivious to the situation that was about to occur in one particular basement, in one particular neighborhood, on a very particular day. But no matter how perfect the day proved to be, it never mattered to us. We preferred to spend our time inside, playing video games or watching creepy YouTube videos in the quiet solitude of our dark basement bedroom. Yes, we might have been extremely vitamin D deficient, but we were having fun. While having fun was the case most of the time, we were still prone to bouts of boredom, same as anybody else. And although growing up in the age of the internet really helped limit these occurrences to a manageable amount, this day was one of those days. My brother, Cody, and I were so bored that we just sat there in the basement, doing nothing, and no matter what idea found its way into our heads, it seemed like nothing could save us from this miserable hell we found ourselves in. We sat in that empty basement for hours until we finally came up with a decent idea. A sleepover. We figured that if we couldn't think of anything better to do than to just sit around doing absolutely nothing, we shouldn't have to do it alone. Plus, maybe this additional person might have a good idea to play around with. So, we made the arrangements, made a few calls, bada bing bada boom. 30 minutes later, Stan showed up with an Xbox controller and an armful of games. Things were starting to look up for us. We showed Stan inside and let him down to the basement where we got everything set up. We weren't exactly sure what game we were going to be playing, but by that point, I was willing to play anything. It was during our discussion of that topic actually, when Cody said something that would change the course of that night's events. Forever. I'm still not sure why I was chosen to get the snacks, or why I even agreed to do it in the first place. All I do know is asking me to do things doesn't typically end well. But I digress. Cody asked for snacks, and I was willing to get them. So I asked everybody what they wanted, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. They said they wanted Pop-Tarts. So I made my way up the basement steps to head towards the kitchen. The upstairs was quiet. Light shining in between the curtains on the sliding glass door reminded me another world existed outside of the basement, and people actually spent time out there. The thought made me shiver. There's no air conditioning outside. I made my way through the living room and into the kitchen, where I grabbed 2 packs of Pop-Tarts, ripped them open, and placed them in the toaster. I was, and still am, not sure exactly how long to leave things in the toaster for, so I usually just sat by the toaster and waited until it felt right to check on them. So, that's what I did. I waited, and I waited some more, and I waited some more. And right when I was planning on checking on them, my ADHD kicked in and distracted me. I'm not sure exactly what my brain thought was so important to remind me of in that instance, but I sure hope it helped me in some way because before I knew it, I heard the pop of the toaster and smelled something burning. Oh my goodness, Squidward, I burned the Pop-Tarts. At the time, they didn't seem that bad to me. Sure, they were black around the edges, and black in the middle, and they were steaming. And maybe I was pretty sure I saw a tiny flame get snuffed out on the corner of one of them as they popped up, but were they inedible? Yes. Being who I am, I just rolled with it. I figured it would be easier to explain to them that I burned the Pop-Tarts and have them complain than having to make new ones. So that's what I did. I grabbed the first Pop-Tart out of the toaster and recoiled in pain as I dropped it onto a plate. It made a loud, hollow sound as it landed, almost as if all of the filling inside had boiled away or hardened completely. My fingers continued to burn for a few seconds afterwards. It felt like I had grabbed a piece of volcanic rock. I repeated the process for the last 3 Pop-Tarts, burning my fingers more and more each time, refusing to forego speed for a safer option. At this point, I thought to myself that, maybe these were too hot. But then again, I thought to myself that maybe they just needed some time to cool off and it'd be no biggie. So, I shrugged it off and made my way back downstairs. As it turns out, this would end up being one of those scenarios where it was, indeed, a biggie. A big oopsie, if you will. I reached the bottom of the stairs in record time, and sitting on the couch was none other than Stan and Cody. But something wasn't right. Something was wrong with Cody. Despite the fact that I had only been gone for a couple of minutes, and the fact that it was the middle of the day, and the fact that he was sitting completely upright on the couch, he was sleeping. Or so he wanted me to think. I could tell he was faking because his face was getting more and more red as he tried his hardest to hold back a smile. I'm not sure why he found this prank so hilarious, but for some reason, it just really pissed me off. It rubbed me the wrong way. The audacity of this boy to think that I was dumb enough to fall for such a blatantly obvious prank. I needed to think of a way to prove that he was awake, and I had the perfect idea. Without saying anything, I slowly made my way over to the couch where the two were sitting. At this point, the Pop-Tarts had cooled down enough for me to grab them and only take minor damage. So I picked up one and gingerly placed it on my brother's exposed knee. Okay, I'll admit it. I might have underestimated just how hot these Satan spawn actually were, because I swear, as soon as that Pop-Tart made contact with his skin, it started to sizzle and slowly roast his leg like a rotisserie chicken. In my defense, I completely expected him to react by going, ow, ooh, and swatting the Pop-Tart onto the couch or something. What I didn't expect was for him to bring down swift justice onto the burnt snack and Hulk smash it directly into his own leg. He punched that pastry a good 4 or 5 times before he really understood that he was just making things worse. I think, in the moment, he was in so much pain that his brain just ceased to function properly, and instead of being mad at me, he was furious at the Pop-Tart, which is why he felt the need to completely destroy it at all costs. He kept pounding away at the poor thing until he couldn't take the pain anymore, Pop-Tart filling dripping down his legs and crumbs scattered around the couch like a battlefield. Crying, he got up and ran upstairs for his mommy. Our mommy. Everything happened so fast that my brain was still having trouble processing things. Looking back, I do feel a little bad. He was just a dumb kid after all, playing an innocent prank on his older brother. And what did I do in return? I melted his epidermis. He cried me a sweater of tears, and I killed him. Me and Stan sat there in the quiet, war-torn basement in silent reflection as we tried to comprehend what all of this meant, what the hidden meaning behind it all was. I eventually came to the conclusion that the only thing all of this meant was I was about to get in serious trouble. Accepting my fate, I made my way upstairs to assess the damage. Once I made it into the living room, I saw Cody, tears running down his blushed face, sitting on the couch with his leg outstretched, our mom cleaning him up and treating his wounds. His thigh was riddled with dime-sized blisters from the middle of his thigh to the top of his knee. Oof. I sat there silently as I watched my mom work away, until finally, without looking at me, she asked, "Why did you burn your brother with a Pop-Tart?" She said it like I did it intentionally, like I planned for all of this to happen, when in fact, I did not. I told her that it was an accident, but she didn't respond, and just continued to clean my brother's leg. Not wanting to stay in that room any longer, I backed my way down the stairs into the basement yet again. Me and Stan sat silently for about 20 minutes until Cody came back down, his leg fully bandaged, face still red from crying. He sniffled a couple of times before asking us if we were going to play or not. And so we did. I don't remember what game we played that night, or even how long it went for. I just know that we all had a great time. Despite our differences, despite our stupidity, we were able to put that all aside and have a great night nonetheless. And thus concludes today's story. I'm sure my brother wishes this never happened, but I'm glad it did, because I was able to share it with all of you, as is often the case with these kinds of stories. At the time, you think about how awful it is, or how embarrassing it is, or how scary it is, but later on down the line, you're able to look back and realize that it wasn't as big of a deal as you thought it was after all. Sometimes, it's even hilarious. If you take anything away from this story, let it be to live in the moment. Live out your own stories. You never know when a cringy, awkward, or embarrassing story might be worth telling in the future. Share your experiences with others, because there's plenty of people out there too afraid to share their own. You never know, someone out there might relate to your stories and get comfort from the fact that they're not alone. There are other people out there just like them. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching today's episode of Storytime with Chris. I'll see you in the next one.